For those of you that have ever played a looter shooter, you'll realise how much of a pivotal role the endgame plays in the longevity and the success of the game. And for all of those people saying, it's not about the destination, bro, it's about the journey. How well organised the endgame is dictates whether or not you're going to keep on wanting to come back and spend time in the marvellous world of Anthem. Luckily so far the devs have answered questions and revealed a few answers that give us a good picture of what the endgame of Anthem is going to look like before it releases. So in this video I'm going to go over how I believe the endgame is going to be structured and how the world of Anthem is going to evolve and play out in front of us. Now it's important to understand that Anthem has 6 tiers of difficulty, the first 3 of which being easy, normal and hard, and then Grandmaster 1, Grandmaster 2 and Grandmaster 3. Now I believe the way this is going to play out is at the start of the game you're going to have the choice between selecting easy, normal and hard to complete the regular campaign. Now during this time you'll probably be able to select hard right at the start, right off the bat, but doing that is going to put yourself obviously at a much more challenging consequence, but I imagine there'll be rewards towards that. You'll probably gain XP more quickly and have a better chance of obtaining powerful gear, which is going to allow you to level up more quickly, but again it comes at the fallback of the content being slightly more difficult, so taking slightly more time to complete. Then I believe once you start to finish the campaign you will end up hitting the soft cap, which will basically be the hard difficulty, and this is when you might get exposed to some of the first endgame content, which you're then going to have to complete in order to progress to the next tier, which is Grandmaster. This endgame content is probably going to arrive in many different forms, but there are 3 that have been hinted at so far, and those are Strongholds, Legendary Contracts and also the Storms. Now I'm going to take a look at Strongholds first, as this is the one that we've been given the most information about. Strongholds are 4-player match-made activities in which you enter a dungeon-like scenario where you have lots of ads to kill and objectives as you progress through deeper and deeper into the stronghold. Now you're going to be killing multitudes of different enemies in these strongholds, I imagine, until you get to the end where you will face a boss. During this whole time I imagine you're going to be able to obtain a whole host of loot, which is good enough in itself and very good for ranking up, but also when you reach the end I imagine the boss there will most likely drop some form of powerful gear or powerful items. Now the devs have stated that these strongholds are going to be very difficult depending on the difficulty setting that you have equipped. Now the harder the difficulty you have equipped, they have stated that it increases the health and the damage of the enemies that you're against, but not also that the advanced enemies, so the elites and probably the boss characters, will have some other benefits as well. They'll have improved dodges and they'll have improved accuracy, so they're going to be able to move around more frequently and also hit you in your head a lot more frequently. Now I imagine similar to that of Borderlands 2, once you have completed a stronghold and you've got some powerful gear from it, potentially the next time you go to attempt it, you might be able to attempt it at the harder difficulty, therefore exposing you to even better gear and even more higher rewards, and I believe that's how the system is going to work. So it's going to be a system of play the stronghold at the max difficulty that you can, obtain gear in that stronghold to allow you the next time you do it to potentially up the difficulty again and gain better gear again. It's going to be a progressive loot based cycle system. Now I'm really hoping that Anthem do something similar to what Borderlands do. When you increase the difficulty on Borderlands, the enemies themselves actually change. Some of their names change and also the size of them changes and their appearance changing. It'd be really cool in Anthem if they could do something like this, so the fact that when you up the difficulty it's not just their health bar that's changing, but also it gives you a visual difference, so it keeps the content fresh and new. This is something we haven't seen yet, but it'd be very interesting to see what direction they take. The next piece of endgame content that I want to take a look at is Legendary Contracts. Now these are basically activities in which you're going to be given or you're going to obtain where you're going to have to complete a very difficult task. This is what the developers tweet states. Legendary contracts are repeatable, dynamic, endgame content which takes you out into the world to satisfy certain objectives. They are hella difficult. Non-legendary contracts are given to you earlier as an attempt to train you. So what this basically means is you'll be exposed to this content earlier in the game, probably as you're going through the easy, normal and hard difficulties, playing through the regular game, and it's going to give you some exposure to how this legendary contract system is going to work when you reach the end game. Then when you reach the end game and you're of a level where you can actually attempt this and you start unlocking these legendary contracts, you're going to be in for a world of trouble and a lot of fun, because it's going to be very difficult in order to complete them. Again, falling into the same cycle. in which you complete these contracts, gain the rewards, become more powerful, and potentially have the ability to then attack them at the Grandmaster level after you've leveled up enough. Now, one interesting thing to note here, it has stated that the Strongholds are match made, but within the legendary contracts it has not stated whether you can actually do these activities solo, so it'll be interesting to find out if this is something that you can attack on your own at your own will, or if you have to be put together with a team. Either way, it'll be interesting to see what direction Anthem go with. And finally, the big one, the main thing that you're going to want to grind towards, and I imagine the most challenging activity that will be in Anthem, is going to be the storms, otherwise known as raids in different games. Now, they've given us barely any information on what the storms are at the moment. There's 100% going to be some form of really hard endgame content here, and this is what they have to say about it.
Will there be raids?
Yeah, so we can answer this question kind of. So I think we believe that every game needs aspirational content.
Yep.
So the idea that there's a lot of activities that you do in the game, and it feels meaningful to have this long tail chase towards something. Either something that is challenging, or something that is rewarding, or that gives you better stuff. And so at launch, we have a lot of amazing aspirational stuff to do, right? As you go through the crit path and get towards max level, you start, getting a better idea of what javelin you want to play, what role you want to play.
Yeah.
And then you start kind of chasing this loot and getting really powerful. And then as you enter like the Elder game, you have Strongholds that you just saw today, and legendary contracts.
Yep.
And as you're doing these harder difficulties, you're building these loadouts and creating these synergies and play styles and trying to work out how to take on the hardest challenges, and then how to do that by yourself for a build, but then amongst a group of 4 players to keep pushing. And then as we enter the live service, we plan to add more and more stuff. And
Yeah,
so
that'll be cool stuff.
we have some really exciting aspirational stuff for the live service that we're not talking about yet, that'll come pretty soon after launch, that will be, as players have done all this amazing content we have at launch, there'll be some more stuff that I think everything you do will get you ready for the things that come later. And we'll be talking about that next year.
So after listening to that, you can surely see that they have got something in the works and something planned, but it's not going to be released at launch, which I personally don't have a problem with whatsoever, because the last thing I want over my head trying to rush through the game so that I can play the really, really difficult content. When the game first comes out, you want that time to be able to enjoy it, play through it at your own pace, and then start grinding to be able to compete and participate in these really difficult activities. But you don't want that initial part of the game to be ruined just because you're trying to level up literally as quick as possible. You want to have time to enjoy it. Now, I do imagine that these storms will work the same way that the Strongholds and the legendary contracts are going to work, but I imagine that you'll have to be Grandmaster 1. If they're leaving it so long before they actually bring these out, it'll be interesting to see. This is just my opinion and pure skepticism, but I'm leading toward the fact that you might have to be Grandmaster 1 to even participate in this, and that's kind of like the cap. You have to at least be Grandmaster 1 in order to participate in a storm. Whether or not that's true, we'll have to find out, but that's just the inkling and the feeling that I have. Now, besides these 3 ways of getting powerful gear and endgame content, I imagine like most games, there'll be something like filler content during the week, during the days, to keep you logging on and keep you playing the game in the form of dailies and weekly content, whether these be little bounties or little objectives to keep you logging in and keep you chipping away, that also can give you some powerful gear or lead to you to be able to craft some form of powerful gear just to keep you playing in between doing the big pieces of content. But overall, Anthem's endgame, there's only 3 pieces of endgame content there, but I'm sure that they'll bring out other things, and if they get these 3 spot on and right, I have no problem with that. I imagine that'll be more than enough content, depending on actual how many instances there are, how many Strongholds there are, and how many different versions of legendary contracts there are. But so far, Anthem is shaping up to be a really, really impressive game, and I'm really excited to cover it more on my channel. Now, if you have liked the Anthem content I've put out so far, please consider subscribing to the channel, because I'm going to be planning more. And if you like this video, please consider leaving it a like. But I'd like to thank you all very much for watching, and have a great day.